Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This is a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. I'm Judith Cranus. Our May 20th municipal primary election is fast approaching. Democrats and Republicans will select their candidates for judges, school directors, and township, borough, and city officials. This is the election where Democrats and Republicans choose the candidates who will represent them on the November ballot. However, when there is a question on the ballot, as there is in the Kutztown School District, all registered voters in that district vote on the question. It's not just Democrats and Republicans. Any registered voter should come and vote. To check your voting status, you can go online to vote.pa.gov. And that is the official state Pennsylvania website. It's a government site, very safe. And there you can register to vote. You can change your party. You can locate your polling place, or you can apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. And the deadline to register is May 5th. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is May 13th. Now, the League, in its part, is interviewing those candidates who want to be interviewed in the contested races. For each race, the candidates will get the same basic questions and have the same amount of time to answer them. Let's begin.
Hello, I'm Bill Litvin, a member of the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Today, the featured race is county coroner. The coroner's chief duty is to investigate all sudden, unexpected, unexplained, or violent deaths occurring within the county. In cases of deaths which have possibly resulted from a criminal act or neglect, the coroner may conduct an inquest and call witnesses. The coroner may employ a physician to conduct autopsies. The current salary is $101,694. Coroners serve a 4-year term. There are 2 Republican candidates on the ballot for coroner, John Fielding and Matt Stitzel. Today our candidate is John Fielding. Welcome.
Hi.
John, please tell our viewers about yourself and why you are running.
Well, I'm the current incumbent of the office, and so therefore I'm running for re-election to an office that I ran for and won 4 years ago. I am a lawyer by training for 30 years in Reading, and I ran for coroner because, quite frankly, it was unfinished business for me because I had run against a previous coroner that was, quite frankly, incompetent. His name was Nicholas Bible. Fired everybody in the office, and then the county ended up paying for all of that. So I ran in 2005 and lost to Dennis Hess, and then I ran in 2021 and won. So I'm running for re-election because, quite frankly, we've actually done a very good job in the office, and nobody has really had a criticism of me or the office or the way it's functioned. And I would like to continue doing the good job that we have done in that office. I'm very proud of the people that I have working for me, and they have done a fine job during these last 4 years.
Please tell us about your education and background and why your particular background is important to this position.
Well, I have 4 degrees, one of them in religious education from Washington Bible College, a Master of Divinity from Reformed Episcopal Seminary, a Master's in Linguistics from Temple University, and my law degree from Temple University. Obviously, the religious training helps in dealing with grieving next of kin and that sort of thing. But also, obviously, my legal background, because an investigation of a death involves evaluating evidence and involves training my people to recognize what evidence is and is not, what is a reasonable basis for a conclusion and what is not, that sort of thing.
Please tell us 3 things you want to accomplish if elected.
Well, we have continued to manage the costs in the office. We are legally mandated to perform certain duties, and that unfortunately costs money. It's easy to say that we're going to cut the budget, but we run a very lean budget in my office, and anyone who says that we need to cut the budget, I think it's sort of incumbent on them to tell me where, because we certainly don't waste money in the office. We do exactly what we feel we need to do in order to manage the office. We continue to be sensitive to the needs of the grieving relatives because we are usually the contact people out at the scene that deals with that. And we identify and properly relocate unidentified and unclaimed remains in our office. That's what we've been taking up a lot of time with lately.
This is a two-part question next. How does the coroner's role differ from police work, and is the coroner's office a law enforcement agency?
Okay, well, the police come out to the scene to determine if a crime has been committed, and we come out to the scene to determine what the cause and manner of death is. And sometimes those overlap, and sometimes they don't. But if we suspect that a crime has been committed, the police job is to investigate the crime scene to determine what kind of evidence points to the possible perpetrator. And our job out there is to determine the cause and manner of death. We take hundreds of photographs at the scene. We are in charge of the body once we get there. The law requires us to have a view of the body and pronounce death. And then we have to investigate all the evidence relevant to determining the cause and manner of death of the person that is there. We are not a law enforcement agency. Some courts have ruled that we are part of the police investigative team, and that's true, but that doesn't make us law enforcement. It makes us investigators. We are death investigators versus police investigators.
Sure. Please tell us about the coroner's staff. What jobs do they do? What kind of special training, if any, do deputy coroners need?
Well, most of our deputy coroners come from other areas of the county. We have people that were ex-law enforcement officers. We have people that were EMTs and other types of medical personnel. All of them have in common the fact that they usually have an investigatory background. Because that's really what this job is. It is not primarily a medical job. It is primarily an investigatory job that has medical and legal overtones. So the special training, you have to have 40 hours of basic coroner training in order to become a deputy coroner and actually to serve as coroner. I had to take and pass the course too. I never set foot in the coroner's office. I did get a 91 though, I will have you know. So, but everybody has to take that, and then they have 8 years of continuing education credits that they have to do. We are also seeking nationwide accreditation for our office, as are all the offices in the counties in Pennsylvania. So we send those folks to training on a regular basis so they can get better at their job.
Okay, and you've kind of answered my next question, which was, does the coroner need the same training as the deputy coroners? I think you've basically said
Yes, and in fact, I need the same 8 hours of continuing legal education. In fact, it's fortuitous that you should ask me that question because I leave on Sunday to go up to an investigator's course up in Boalsburg, and then we also have a coroner training that dovetails with that, where our own Neil Hoffman is presenting the details on the Palmer candy explosion. Okay. So we went up there to give him moral support for that.
Boalsburg, don't even know where that is.
That's right next to State College.
Okay. What qualifications will you look for when hiring deputy coroners?
Well, we look for people with some kind of a science background, maybe a medical background, because that helps with some of the terminology in the reports, because you have to read an awful lot of medical records if you want to determine the cause and manner of death. So we look for an investigatory background where people are trained to be able to locate certain things in medical records that would indicate why the person died.
Okay. And how does the coroner decide whether it is or isn't necessary to go to the scene to look at the body?
Well, first of all, anything that occurs within our jurisdiction, one of my people goes to look at the scene, to look at the body. That is a requirement of the law. We have to have a view of the body. Now, if you're talking about the coroner or senior staff, I'm not a big believer in perching on the shoulders of my employees. They're good people. We've had people there over 20 years. They do not need me perching on their shoulder telling them what to do every moment. However, we are always reachable by phone. Our people call us all the time to get advice, and we will go out to a scene if it's necessary. And if they want us to go out to the scene, we will certainly go out to the scene and lend a hand or advice, whatever is necessary.
Okay, and if a crime is suspected in relation to a death, the police also have a responsibility at the death scene. When the police and the coroner share jurisdiction, who determines, or how will you determine who's in charge?
Well, happily, we don't really have those problems. When you have two agencies that have two different responsibilities, you just simply work it out between you. I mean, once we have a view of the body, the law says we are in charge of the scene. We tread a little lightly on that. You know, there's evidence around. The police escort us past the evidence to the body. We have a view of the body. We pronounce death. Then they escort us out. They do their thing. We take our photographs. It's all very cooperative. We do not feel that we are rivals with the police.
Okay, and I'm sure that helps the communications overall.
Right.
Let's talk about autopsies. I note for our viewers that an autopsy is a medical examination of the body by a pathologist. How will you determine whether an autopsy is necessary? Is it the coroner's budget, which is set by the county commissioners? Is that part of the decision or not?
Well, obviously, we don't try to do things frivolously. My instructions to my deputies were this: you are supposed to examine all the evidence. If you need an autopsy to make a determination on cause and manner of death, order an autopsy. You do not need my permission to do that, because it is an arrow in their quiver of determining what the cause and manner of death is. I am not going to, we do not really act according to budgetary restraints. We always have an eye on that, but that is not the consideration. The consideration is doing our job, finding the cause and manner of death, even if an autopsy is required.
Okay. And the coroner has powers that we haven't talked about yet, the authority to call an inquest. In other words, the coroner can subpoena people to present evidence in a death case. Why would that be necessary, and under what circumstances would you call an inquest?
You call an inquest when people are not certain as to whether the cause of death was an accident. Many times it involves a question of whether it's a suicide or whether it's a homicide, because that impinges, of course, upon the criminal law. And frankly, it's something that's done in concert, actually, with the district attorney. The district attorney actually advises the coroner. The coroner acts as the judge in the case, and the district attorney actually advises the coroner as to how to present the evidence and how to receive witnesses. And the jury, which are 6 people, they determine after the evidence presented if there was a crime committed, and if there was a crime committed, who committed it. And that's what an inquest is.
Okay. The coroner must deal with families at a very bleak moment. They've just lost a loved one. What is the appropriate role of the coroner and deputies in dealing with families, and how will you train your staff to provide what you feel is needed?
Well, we have had some deputy coroners in the past that were a little less helpful in that area. They were a little abrupt with the family, and we train all of our people to deal with them at a moment that is a very sensitive moment in their life. And to that end, I tell my people, I said, if you have to be there an hour, take an hour. If you have to be there 2 hours, take 2 hours. Whatever it takes to make the family feel comfortable with what you're doing and what our office is doing, and helping them to come to grips at this particular moment in their life, which many times is unexpected, especially in the case of younger people.
Is that one of the hardest parts of the job, do you think, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, because you know, our people are pretty cut and dried when it comes to their investigation, but it also requires a balance with empathy for the family's feelings at the time. You can't give everybody short shrift just because you feel like you have a job to do. Your job is to make them comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah, I can well imagine that would be tough. Okay, well, we're just about at the end of our interview. So if you wouldn't mind, please make your closing statement. And you have a couple minutes. So.
All right. Well, I would like to tell the people that we have run the office in an efficient manner. We have taken a close look at our budget, and we have cut where it is necessary. But unfortunately, we have a mandate from the government, and we have to perform certain things, and unfortunately, those things cost money. So we keep a very close look on our budget, but we have to do our job. So we will continue to do that. I don't think that anybody really has raised a criticism with me or a criticism of the functioning of the office. Some people have said, well, you need to cut the budget, but they seem to be very unspecific as to what that means. And some people have suggested we need body cams, which I think would be a terrible idea for the grieving family, because video cameras are a little indiscriminate out at a scene, and I'm sure they would feel very uncomfortable having someone video their moment of grief. So I can't say that I would support that notion, but we will continue to relocate unidentified and unclaimed remains in the appropriate place. We have a place for unclaimed infants, and we did that through the Adeline Rose Foundation out at the Charles Evans Cemetery. And we've also relocated veterans that are unclaimed through Veterans Making a Difference to Fort Indian Town Gap. When I first took office, I said, what's in this closet? And they said, oh, these are all of the unclaimed remains and all the unidentified people. And I turned to George, my chief deputy, and I said, I don't think that they dreamed of writing out eternity in my closet. So let's see what we can do about getting these people out of here. So that's what my office has done. It's one of the little-known things that we've done. We had a recent success with the identification of Nicholas Grubb, who for 40-some years was Pinnacle Man, because of our attention to duty in making sure that his next of kin received his remains. And to do that, we have to do identification work. It's one of the little-known things that we do in our office, and we have done that pretty well, I think. So I would just ask everybody to support my reelection so that we can continue doing the job that the taxpayers of Berks County have authorized us to do.
Okay, well, thank you, John Fielding, for sharing your views with us. Viewers, please remember there is another candidate for coroner, Matt Stitzel. So when you go to the polls, you, as a Republican voter, you can vote for John Fielding or Matt Stitzel. You will find Candidates Upfront interviews on BCTV and its website and YouTube page. For more information on candidates, you can go to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. That's vote411.org. For more information on election procedures, contact Berks County Election Services, elections@berkspa.gov, or 610-478-6490. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front.